All right, everybody, get ready, because today we're diving headfirst into some serious history.
Yeah, we're talking World War II.
I know what you're thinking. World War II, haven't we heard it all?
Right. Another history lesson.
But trust me on this, we're going way beyond the basic facts. We found some seriously fascinating stuff.
Things that really make you think about this chapter in history.
For instance, get this. Did you know that nearly 3% of the entire world's population in 1940 died because of the war?
3%.
3%. It's a mind-blowing number, something like 70 to 85 million people. I mean,
It's almost unfathomable.
it is. To put it into perspective, that's like wiping out, I don't know, the entire populations of California, Texas, and New York combined.
And even that doesn't quite capture it, does it? Because behind those numbers, each one, that's a human life, a story.
Right, exactly.
And to grasp the real impact of World War II, we have to understand that these losses, they weren't distributed evenly.
Yeah.
Take the Soviet Union, for example. They faced the brunt of the Nazi war machine, suffering an estimated 26 million casualties.
26 million.
26 million.
And those are both military and civilian casualties, right?
Exactly. Men, women, children. It's a staggering loss that left an indelible mark on the country.
Absolutely. And it really highlights the vastly different realities faced by different nations during the war. The U.S., for instance, while deeply affected, experienced losses on a different scale altogether.
Right. Around 418,000.
Still a significant number, but it pales in comparison to the devastation faced by the Soviets. And these numbers, they're not just historical footnotes, are they? They reverberated outward, shaping the world we live in today.
Exactly. They influenced the balance of power after the war, directed reconstruction efforts, even fundamentally shaped national identities. It's a stark reminder of the long-lasting impact of global conflict, how these events continue to echo through time.
It's heavy stuff, for sure. But there's another side to World War II that we often overlook. Amidst all the destruction, it was also a time of incredible innovation.
It's strange to think about, isn't it, how a global conflict, with all its horrors, could also be a catalyst for progress.
It is. But when you think about it, it makes sense. The urgency of war often pushes resources towards research and development with this incredible zeal.
Precisely. Necessity, they say, is the mother of invention. And wartime has a way of accelerating that process like nothing else.
Yeah. Like, take the jet engine, for example. I mean, we take it for granted today.
Right, commercial air travel, it wouldn't be the same without it.
Exactly.
And while the underlying technology was there before the war, it was the conflict, particularly the efforts of the Germans, that really pushed its development into overdrive.
And it's not just the jet engine. Get this. Our research mentions that penicillin, the absolute lifesaver, the thing we rely on for so many infections today, it was first mass-produced during World War II.
That's right. It had been discovered earlier, of course.
Right.
But it was the war, the sheer scale of casualties that created this urgent need to figure out how to mass produce it, make it available on a large scale.
And the impact was enormous.
Absolutely. It saved countless lives, not just on the battlefield, but in the years that followed.
It's incredible to think about something we rely on so heavily today, emerging from such a dark chapter in human history.
It does make you think about the complexities of progress, how it can arise from the most unexpected places.
It really does. And get this, the very first programmable digital computer, the granddaddy of our laptops and smartphones, that was born during World War II as well.
That's right, the Colossus.
Colossus, that's the one.
Built by the British during the war.
To crack the Nazi Enigma code, right.
Exactly.
I can't even imagine what it must have been like back then to witness the birth of what would eventually become the digital age.
It's a different world.
A different world, for sure. Okay, but we can't talk about World War II without addressing the elephant, or rather the mushroom cloud in the room.
The atomic bomb.
Exactly.
The Manhattan Project.
Huh?
A top-secret endeavor during the war, culminating in the creation of the atomic bomb.
And ultimately the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A sobering reminder, wouldn't you say, of the double-edged sword of innovation.
Absolutely. The pursuit of progress, especially during wartime, can have unintended and devastating consequences.
Consequences that reach far beyond the battlefield. And speaking of things that reach far beyond the battlefield, get ready, because this is where things get really interesting. We're about to dive into some lesser-known stories from World War II, stories that'll make you think you've stepped into a spy thriller.
Oh, I like where this is going.
And it all starts with the Ghost Army.
Ah, yes. The Ghost Army. A fascinating example of wartime deception.
Wartime deception. Okay, I'm intrigued.
So picture this. The U.S. Army deploys a unit of artists, sound engineers, creative minds. Their mission to create the illusion of a phantom army.
Wait, what the Phantom Army? Like fake soldiers?
Well, sort of.
How do you even begin to?
They used inflatable tanks, fake radio transmissions, even these meticulously crafted sound effects to mimic troop movements.
You're kidding. They went through all that trouble to fool the Germans.
They did, and it actually worked.
No way. The Germans fell for it.
Oh, yeah. They were often fooled, misdirecting their forces, giving the Allies tactical advantages.
Talk about thinking outside the box.
Right. It just goes to show sometimes the illusion of strength could be just as potent as the real thing.
It's straight out of a movie.
It really is.
But this next story we came across, this one proves that truth is often stranger than fiction.
Oh, I'm all ears.
Are you ready for this? Adolf Hitler had a nephew who fought for the U.S. Navy.
Wait, what? Hitler had a nephew in the U.S. Navy?
You can't make this stuff up. It's like family drama on a global scale.
Wow. That's wild.
Right. His name was William Patrick Hitler.
William Patrick Hitler.
And get this, he even wrote an article titled, "Why I Hate My Uncle."
I bet that was a read and a half.
I know. It's these little glimpses into the personal lives of people caught up in these massive global conflicts that really get me.
It's a good reminder that history isn't just about dates and battles. It's about people, about individual lives unfolding against the backdrop of these world-changing events.
Exactly. And speaking of individuals, we came across this incredible story of a Finnish sniper, Simo Heihe, nicknamed the White Death.
The White Death. That's an intense nickname.
Right. And it's well-deserved, apparently. He's credited with over 500 confirmed kills during the Winter War between Finland and the Soviet Union.
500.
500. And get this, he did it all using iron sights.
Iron sights.
Yeah.
No scopes or anything.
Nope. Just him, his rifle, and his incredible marksmanship. And all while battling the brutal Finnish winter.
Talk about resilience.
Right. It's almost unimaginable what he must have endured out there. The freezing temperatures, the constant threat of enemy fire.
It's a reminder of the human cost of war, the incredible sacrifices made by soldiers on the front lines.
Absolutely. And speaking of things that sound almost too incredible to be true, have you ever heard of Operation Mincemeat?
Operation Mincemeat. Now that one rings a bell, but refresh my memory.
It sounds like something straight out of a spy novel. Okay, so picture this. It's World War II, and the British are desperate to mislead the Germans about their invasion plans.
High stakes.
The highest. So what do? They come up with this audacious plan to plant fake documents on a dead body and set it adrift near Spain.
Wait, they used a dead body
Yeah.
to spread misinformation.
Yeah, and the craziest part, the Germans fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker.
I mean, I guess it worked.
It did. They were convinced that the Allies were targeting Greece instead of Sicily, which was the actual target.
Wow, talk about a gamble that paid off.
Right. It really makes you question how much of what we accept as truth is shaped by these elaborate deceptions, even today.
It's a chilling thought.
It is. But amidst all these grand narratives of deception and global warfare, it's important to remember the smaller, often overlooked acts of courage and defiance.
The everyday heroes, right?
Exactly. And one example that really stood out to us is the White Rose, a student resistance movement that dared to oppose the Nazi regime from within Germany itself.
I vaguely remember learning about them in school.
They were incredible. Just a small group of students, mostly in their early 20s, who risked everything to distribute anti-Nazi pamphlets.
Knowing full well the potential consequences.
Absolutely. It was incredibly dangerous, but they felt they had a moral obligation to speak out against the horrors they were witnessing.
The courage it must have taken to stand up to that kind of oppression, it's inspiring.
It is, and it serves as this powerful reminder that even under the most oppressive regimes, resistance is possible.
It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
It really is. You know, for all the talk of grand strategies and military might, sometimes it's the seemingly insignificant, almost accidental events that can have the most profound impact on history.
The butterfly effect, right?
Exactly.
One small change rippling outward, leading to unforeseen consequences.
And one of those what-if scenarios that really caught our attention involves the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
Oh, right. One of those pivotal moments in history.
Did you know that the attack was actually delayed due to bad weather? It was initially planned for December 6th, but low visibility pushed it back to December 7th.
I didn't know that.
It's crazy to think that something as unpredictable as the weather could have potentially rewritten history.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other seemingly insignificant events, those near misses, have shaped the world we live in today.
Right. And it's those kind of questions, those sliding door moments, that make studying history so captivating.
It's not just about memorizing dates and battles. It's about understanding the interconnectedness of events, how seemingly unrelated factors can converge to shape the course of human history.
Absolutely. But the impact of World War II, it wasn't confined to those 6 years of conflict. It had this ripple effect that continues to shape our world today.
Its legacy is still felt in ways both big and small.
Exactly. And one of the most significant legacies has to be the Nuremberg trials, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The Nuremberg trials were unprecedented, a landmark event in the aftermath of the war.
For the first time, high-ranking officials were held accountable for war crimes in an international court.
It established a groundbreaking principle that individuals, even those in positions of immense power, are not above the law.
That they can be held responsible for atrocities committed during wartime.
Exactly.
It set a powerful precedent for international justice, didn't it?
It did. Of course, the Nuremberg trials weren't without their flaws or criticism.
Right.
There were questions about the victors judging the vanquished and whether all atrocities were adequately addressed.
Sure, and those are important nuances to consider.
But despite those criticisms, the Nuremberg trials marked a turning point in international law, laying the groundwork for future war crimes tribunals and the pursuit of justice on a global scale.
Absolutely. And from the ashes of World War II, another legacy emerged: the United Nations.
Ah, yes. The UN, created with the noble goal of preventing future conflicts.
A tall order, to be sure.
Indeed. But the very idea of the UN, of nations coming together to try and find peaceful solutions, it was born out of the horrors of World War II.
Out of the understanding that global cooperation, however flawed, was essential to preventing another such catastrophe.
Precisely.
But the UN wasn't the only consequence of the war that continues to shape global dynamics today.
True. You could argue that the Cold War, that decades-long rivalry between the U.S. and the Soviet Union, had its roots in the closing chapters of World War II.
Right, as the alliance between the Western powers and the Soviet Union started to unravel.
Exactly. Their post-war visions diverged, leading to this era of suspicion, proxy conflicts, and the constant threat of nuclear annihilation.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How one conflict can sow the seeds for the next.
It's a reminder that history is rarely linear.
Never a dull moment, that's for sure. But even amidst all this geopolitical upheaval, there were also these incredible stories of rebuilding and recovery.
The human spirit is nothing if not resilient.
That's for sure. One example that really stood out to us is the Marshall Plan, a U.S.-led initiative to help war-torn Europe get back on its feet.
The Marshall Plan was massive, pumping billions of dollars into the reconstruction of Western Europe.
And while it was partly motivated by humanitarian concerns, it also served a strategic purpose, didn't it?
Absolutely. The U.S. wanted to prevent the spread of Soviet influence in post-war Europe, and helping to rebuild war-torn nations was seen as crucial to that goal.
So it was about more than just rebuilding infrastructure. It was about shaping the geopolitical landscape of the post-war world.
Precisely. And it played a significant role in the economic recovery of Western Europe, further solidifying alliances during those crucial early years of the Cold War.
It's a good reminder that even with the best intentions, navigating the aftermath of a conflict as devastating as World War II is incredibly complex.
It's a balancing act, rebuilding physical structures while also addressing the psychological scars, the political divisions, and the social upheaval left in the war's wake.
And those scars, they have a way of lingering across generations.
They do. The trauma of war, the displacement of populations, the sheer loss of innocence. These are wounds that take time and understanding to heal.
It's a reminder that the echoes of World War II, they continue to reverberate long after the guns fell silent.
And it's our responsibility to listen to those echoes, to learn from the past, and strive for a future where such conflicts are never repeated.
Well said.
Hey-ho story's one for the books.
Seriously. Over 500 confirmed kills using iron sights, battling the Finnish winter.
He's a legend, no doubt.
It's remarkable.
But it's also, it's a stark reminder of the brutal reality faced by soldiers on the front lines.
The conditions, the mental strain.
Exactly.
It's almost unfathomable.
It really makes you appreciate the resilience of the human spirit.
It does. And, speaking of things that sound almost too incredible to be true, have you ever heard of Operation Mincemeat?
Operation Mincemeat. Now, that one rings a bell.
It sounds like something straight out of a spy novel.
It does, doesn't it? It involves,
Okay, so picture this. It's World War II. The fate of Europe hangs in the balance. And the British come up with this audacious, absolutely bonkers plan to mislead the Germans about their invasion plans.
Okay, Okay, I'm picturing it. I'm picturing it.
They plant fake documents, top secret documents, on a dead body.
A dead body.
A dead body. And they set it adrift near Spain, where they know German intelligence will find it.
Oh, wow.
It's a long shot, right? But the craziest part is the Germans fell for it.
They actually believed it.
Hook, line, and sinker. They were convinced that the Allies were targeting Greece instead of Sicily, which was the real target.
That's incredible.
Isn't it? Talk about a high-stakes gamble that actually paid off.
It really makes you think about the role of deception in warfare.
Right. And how much of what we accept as truth, even today, is shaped by these carefully constructed narratives.
It's a bit unsettling when you think about it.
It is. It is. But even amidst all these grand narratives of espionage and global conflict, it's important to remember the smaller, often overlooked stories of courage and defiance.
The everyday heroes.
Exactly.
The ones who may not have made headlines, but who risked their lives for what they believed in.
Exactly. And one such story that really resonated with us is that of the White Rose, a student resistance movement in Nazi Germany.
The White Rose, I've heard that name.
They were incredible. Just a small group of students, mostly in their early 20s, who decided they couldn't stay silent while their country descended into darkness.
And they spoke out against the Nazi regime, knowing the risks.
Absolutely. They knew the risks. They were incredibly brave. They wrote and distributed pamphlets denouncing the Nazis and calling for peaceful resistance.
Wow, what happened to them?
Tragically, they were betrayed, arrested, and executed by the Gestapo.
That's heartbreaking.
It is a tragic story.
Huh.
But their courage, their willingness to stand up for what they believed in, even in the face of such danger, it's incredibly inspiring.
It really shows you the power of the human spirit, even in the darkest of times.
It does. You know, when we think about World War II, we often focus on these grand strategies, military campaigns, the clash of ideologies.
Right, the big picture stuff.
Exactly. But sometimes it's the seemingly insignificant, almost accidental events that can have the most profound impact on history.
The butterfly effect you're talking about.
Exactly.
One small change rippling outward, leading to unforeseen consequences.
And one of those what-if scenarios that really captured our imagination involves the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor, that's a big one.
It is a pivotal moment in history. But did you know that the attack was actually delayed due to bad weather?
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, it was initially planned for December 6th, but low visibility pushed it back to December 7th.
Wow.
Just imagine if the weather had been just a bit different, the attack might have happened on a different day, maybe not happened at all.
It really makes you think about how these seemingly random events, things we can't control, can have such a huge impact on the course of history.
It's like this reminder that even the most carefully laid plans can be thrown off course by something as unpredictable as the weather.
It's humbling, in a way.
It is, and it makes studying history, uncovering these little details and what-if scenarios all the more fascinating.
It's like piecing together a puzzle, isn't it?
It really is. It really does make you realize that history isn't just something we read about in textbooks. It's about people, you know?
Absolutely. It's about the choices they made, the challenges they faced, their triumphs and tragedy.
It's about the resilience of the human spirit. And speaking of resilience, there are so many incredible stories of heroism from World War II, like Oskar Schindler, for instance.
So Schindler, yeah.
He's the German businessman who risked his life to save over 1,000 Jewish people from the Holocaust, right?
His story is incredible.
It is. It's hard to even fathom.
Using his factories to employ Jewish people, protecting them, even bribing Nazi officials to turn a blind eye.
And he managed to save so many lives.
Over 1,000. Can you imagine the courage it took to do that, to stand up to that kind of evil?
It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, one person's actions can make a difference.
You really can.
And it's not just Schindler's story. There's also the story of the Navajo Code Talkers.
Ah, the Code Talkers, they were amazing.
They were instrumental in the Pacific Theater, weren't they?
They were, particularly in the U.S. Marine Corps.
Yeah. Using their native language, which was unwritten and incredibly complex, to transmit messages the Japanese couldn't decipher.
The Japanese were completely baffled. They had no idea what they were hearing.
It's brilliant, really, how they turned their cultural heritage into a strategic advantage.
It's a testament to the power of diversity, even in the midst of war.
Absolutely. But even as we celebrate these stories of bravery and ingenuity, it's important to remember the darker chapters of World War II.
Of course, we can't forget the atrocities.
The Holocaust, the systematic genocide of 6 million Jews by the Nazi regime, stands as this horrific reminder of the consequences of unchecked hatred and prejudice.
It's a stark warning from history, something we must never forget.
And one of the most impactful accounts from that time, I think, is Anne Frank's diary.
Anne Frank's diary, yes, incredibly powerful.
Just this young girl trapped in hiding, documenting her experiences, her fears, her hopes.
It personalizes it, in a way.
It does. It reminds us that behind the statistics, behind the grand narratives of war, there are individual lives, individual stories.
And each one of those stories matters.
They do. They remind us of the human cost of conflict. It's interesting thinking back to those what-if scenarios we were discussing earlier.
The sliding door moments, right?
Exactly.
Where one small change could have had massive ripple effects.
Like the bombing of Pearl Harbor, for example. Did you know that it almost happened even later than it did?
Later than December 7th.
Yeah, it was initially planned for December 6th, but bad weather forced them to postpone.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that close.
It really highlights how something as seemingly insignificant as the weather can have these huge historical consequences.
It's remarkable when you think about it.
And it makes you wonder how many other seemingly minor events, near misses, twists of fate, have shaped the world we live in today.
It's a question worth pondering, for sure.
It is, because ultimately, I think the biggest takeaway from our deep dive into World War II is that history isn't just a straight line.
Definitely not. It's far more nuanced than that.
It's a complex tapestry of events, decisions, accidents, unintended consequences. It's messy. It's unpredictable.
And it's full of these incredible stories, both big and small, that continue to shape our world today.
It's our job to keep telling those stories, to learn from the past, and to strive for a future where the mistakes of history aren't repeated.
Well said. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into World War II. But before we go, we want to leave you with a question to ponder. What seemingly small event, what near miss, what twist of fate do you think is shaping our world right now? Because sometimes it's in those seemingly insignificant moments that the course of history is altered. Think about it, and until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.